This video will focus on how to analyze the sources you find. This is an important process that you should be performing every time you look at information, not just when you're doing research for a class. Although it's a little simplistic, I find that the CRAP test is one of the easiest ways to analyze your resources. So with the CRAP test, you want to look at the currency of your resource, the relevance, the authority, the accuracy, and the purpose. And we're going to look at each of these steps in the upcoming minutes. First, you want to consider the age of the information. If it's older, it may be out of date, but give you a historical perspective. Finding the date of the information is different depending on the source. For books, you can usually find the publication date on the catalog record. If you have the book in front of you, either in physical or digital format, you can look at the copyright page to find the publication date. With articles, you can also find the publication date on the database record. And if you are looking at the journal article, you may find the publication date at the top, bottom, or side of the page. Next, you want to consider if the information is truly relevant to your research. Trying to use a resource that doesn't fit is like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. You may think you're getting away with something by shoving it in there, but chances are your reader is going to notice it doesn't really fit. To figure out if a resource is relevant to your research, look at the chapter or section titles. Sometimes the title of the resource is enough to tell you what you need, but you can also look at summaries and abstracts. The subject headings can give you a good clue about the important elements of the resource as well. The authority of your source depends on the credentials of the author and publisher. With books, you want to look for academic publishers. If it's a university press, that's an academic source. However, there are some other publishers like Bloomsbury, Routledge, and Palgrave Macmillan that are also academic. You can always ask your professor or me if you aren't sure. For articles, peer review is your gold standard. Those articles have gone through a rigorous review process by other experts in the field. You can usually find information about the journals by clicking on them in the database. With regard to the authors, you will start to recognize names that pop up a lot in your research. You can also do a Google search to find more information about the authors, and sometimes you can click on their names in the catalog or databases to find out more information. Learning to judge the accuracy of a resource is complex and takes practice and a lot of reading in your field. However, there are two things you can look for that can help. The first is citations. You never want to ignore these in your research. If there are citations, that's a good sign to start. If the citations are to other scholarly resources, that's an even better sign. Also, of course, is whether or not the resource is peer-reviewed. While this doesn't necessarily mean the resource is quote-unquote right, it does mean that it has passed by other experts in the field who have given it their approval. Finally, you want to consider the reason the information exists at all. Was it created to entertain or to educate, to persuade, or just to state the facts? What are the biases? If you compare the different kinds of sources, you'll notice a difference in the language alone. Scholarly resources tend to be drier and include a lot of facts. Popular sources, like newspapers and magazines, have more exciting language and generally are more entertaining because that's where they make their money. Book reviews are useful if you're trying to find quality books to use for your research, but should never be used as sources in and of themselves. No matter what you're researching, you should always consider whether or not the information you're looking at is crap. You don't want to cite something in your paper that doesn't support your argument or isn't credible. If you're ever unsure, don't hesitate to ask someone.